think that we could utilize some field space within Little League. I don't honestly know. I have a call into, Waco to find out what some of our parameters are that we would have to play under. I don't know what that looks like with us running Little League. Little League is the best league for us right now to be all inclusive for the city.
Right.
I don't want to, yes, there are some potential uses out here, and I agree that we could do that. My biggest concern is I can't afford to raise prices. We've already given more scholarships in the last several years, and I can't afford to lose any concessions because that is what runs us day to day. That pays our umpires, and
we have no intention of your revenue being affected at all. If anything, our goal is to increase your revenue so that you can do more. Okay, that's me right here, president of the university, telling you that we are not trying to take any resource that you have away from you. We are only trying to add value. And on the property that we do own, we have a fiduciary responsibility, and in fact, a requirement when we do the 25-year lease to make sure that that works for the university. And the way for us to be able to make good on the promise that I just made to you, right, is that we have an additional revenue source that makes the math work in a way that I can get a 25-year agreement. If I can't get a 25-year agreement that works through all the requirements from the UT system, I will not be allowed to let you use our fields, and that is not where I want to go. So, and I want to be clear, we don't have all of the answers. So we have a sketch of what we want to do, but we don't know everything that we need to know from you and from the city about how it needs to work. But we're willing to, in good faith, during this transition year, sit down with all of you and make sure that we find the right combination of where we can plug in and add value and where we stay out of your business so that you can run your business going forward.
And the other thing that I just have concern about, as you say, we have a transition year, and that's great. I don't want us to waive any rights during this year, and we get to the end of the year, and everything be great for UT and not so great for the associations. That's the only other thing that I don't want to. And again, I don't have a lot at stake.
Can I ask you a question? Just thinking about the little leagues, aren't they part like of a municipality? So you've got Sherwood, and then you've got Jim Parker.
Those are each separate charters that we're chartered in District 3. So each one of those is part of District 3. So they're individual.
But they're geared towards their area that
Yes.
they play in.
They're boundaries there.
Okay.
So
My
all three
question.
leagues are autonomous, independent of each other?
Yes.
So they work, even though
They all have their own set of bylaws. They run independently of each other. They're
So who governs?
So so it's up
They
there?
all each have a board, and each part, they run their thing, their board runs.
And is that the same with the softball associations also?
No, we're one, that's it, just one association.
Little League is yeah, it's a lot older, so a little more.
It works. It works. And the reason I ask is because I have a grandson that participates at Sherwood.
Right.
And so we're in the borderline of going to Jim Parker.
Right, so and you get to where you go to school or where where you live, and then you play in that boundary.
So, can we bring up this scenario? Who would take over the any complaints of the association, whether it be soccer, baseball, softball, saying they're not getting their field usage, or even if somebody wants to be a member on the board, and they said they're not having elections, who would step in and who would manage that? Who would take care of that?
We do not want to manage the associations. Okay,
So that would still fall back to
our goal is not to manage the associations. What we're asking to do is to be the central support for managing the scheduling and helping Discover Odessa with recruiting, making sure that the scheduling prioritize what's needed on the local associations, and then optimizing the fields on UTPB program.
And I have one little question about that. where does that money come from to pay the person that's gonna do that job?
Well, eventually it will come from the fees that come from the external tournaments when they come in. Okay, so we have asked the city, we have put in a request with the mayor that we get at least 3 years of startup funds to get the initial staff that Todd will need to set up the website and the technology and the person who will be able to help with game-to-day operations, particularly for the tournaments, to navigate the scheduling. There's certain scheduling software that allows us to kind of nail that down. If I'm able to get the 3-year running room on that, then we don't have to get any of that money from the association. And in fact, that wouldn't be my intent anyway. If I'm unable to get support from the city to do that in the transition, then I'll have to find a private source of money that will allow me to get that stood up so that we can go. Then it will be self-supporting. It will be self-supporting through the fees that come in through the tournaments themselves that rent the fields to come in, and it will be paid for out of the concession profit that comes from the concession that happens, in those tournaments. Our goal is for the tournaments, however many we have, to pay the freight on the improvements and to pay the university, the staff, to be able to manage the operations. And that is what we intend to do. We do not have intentions of adding any new fees on top of the association. Now again, the old 25-year agreement did require 10%. We haven't collected on that. So we will, we will have to figure out whether or not the improvements on the fields are a facilities fee that we collectively agree to go into a central pot so that we have a central organized way to determine what's needed, or whether we still disaggregate that and the associations make the contributions that you've already been making on improvements on the field. We have to work all that out, and I don't know the answer to how we do that. But it is not our intent to take revenue from the association.
Also, keep in mind, up until tonight, I'd never heard anything about UTPB scheduling, like baseball. Okay, you guys, you don't play here, and so I'm not saying it's not going to affect you, but like I said, that was a little bit of a surprise to me. So football and baseball, you're not utilizing their fields. And so, maybe the rest of the council got the memo on that one, but
The initial question that I had, and why I brought it up, and I wanted you to, like I said, this is time for you to throw everything out. Trying to get a handle overall of what this means as far as a third party into scheduling, concessions, things of that nature. This thing's in 3 parts. City will continue to maintain facilities, fields at UTBB as we do throughout the entire system. Odessa would work in the recruitment, and UTBB would basically, because everything's on their facilities, would be the manager. And so do the scheduling, the lives, things of that nature. And so in the end, we made an investment 25 years ago on UTB, on university school land. So that was the investment, it was in the land. In the end, they're in the real estate business, and they had parameters as far as the UT system. My question, when the first time we sat down, was, so I knew that I knew that Little League did not play it. And when we expanded that, we added 2 Little League fields because it enabled us to get grants and things of that nature. But I know at that time, when we first initially did 25 years ago, they weren't being utilized. And Little League never came on. And at that time, we had Southside, Kellis Turner, North Hector, and so we had a big league, now it's reduced. But nonetheless, I've been to Jim Parker and we're busting it in. My question was to the university at that time was, okay, so when we're talking about, you're talking initially just the 93 acres. So then my concern is, what about the other leagues? So and so I guess that's the question, for us to understand as a council and as a city, is how do we go forward? Do we have We still have to maintain the rest of the system. We still have to maintain this system. Now we have two different systems. And so now your agreements, everybody that plays the UTD is no longer with the city, they're with the university. And we will still have to continue agreements with every piece of acre for athletics that are coming outside of, out of these fields. See what I'm saying? So I'm trying, I guess I was trying to assess at one point where we'll continue discussions is, what does this mean? Does UTPB take it all, central, in third-party management, or is concentrated on 93 acres? This is why this was crucial, because we learned something. Then we realized that literally you had three leagues that are all autonomous, their own bylaws, and their own governing bodies. And so, is it complicated? Probably a little bit more so. And so, and I want to add this. Does everybody understand where we are in this process? Because it's this third paragraph, everybody's read it. We really need to understand because no questions have been given to us. I want to make sure that everybody understands where we are in this process. Why we're here. I'm sorry.
I said, I had one of these questions, it said the year transition, but it looks like 3 months to me.
Well, our contract expires with the city on August 31st. 90 days from that, it has an automatic 5-year renewal. And so we have to sometime in May start on what the new agreement is, or else it will automatically roll over for 5 years. And so we want to negotiate a new agreement. So we don't know all the answers yet. I mean, to the mayor's point, I'm not sure that it's the right thing for the university to manage all of that, but maybe it's helpful if you have the central coordinator, particularly because of the coordination between the tournaments that will come into those sites and the associations. But I'm not wedded to that. That's not what we have to do. I mean, my main fiduciary responsibility is to the UTPB fields. We can make it work however we decide to do it. But what I do know is I have to make a change to go forward. Okay? I don't know exactly what the long-term agreement is going to be, but I have to get started on putting myself in a position to be able to get a long-term agreement through the UT system. And the transition that would allow us to begin this, organizational management of our own property, particularly, we'll just go on that right now, has got to start this year. Now, if we get to the end of the year and we need another year, then the agreement that we have would roll over for one additional year. Then we've got a year or two to figure out what is optimal. And as I said before, we don't have all the answers either. But the associations will know within this year whether or not UTBB is working together in good faith. Okay? You'll know, in the conversations that we have together where we're headed. And for certainly, if we roll over into the year 2, we'll begin to see. If it's not working and we can't add value and do the kinds of things that will be necessary for us to do to get a long-term agreement through the UT system, then I will be forced to back out of using our fields for this purpose, and I don't want to do that. I'm committed to doing it. So it is not my choice not to have a 25-year agreement that works for everybody, but I have certain requirements that I have to meet, and then I need this year under this, agreement to figure that out with you. And then if we get to the end of the year or 2 years and in good faith it's not working, then I hope that we'll be able to part ways friendly, because everybody gave it their best shot to be able to do it together. And that's my commitment.
Dr. Wood, I have one quick question, and it goes back to the tournaments. I'm all for bringing the extra revenue to our city. But I'm also thinking, I'm spoiled. We go to tournaments all over. We go to Dallas, we go to Plano, we go to San Antonio, even El Paso, and their facilities, their soccer fields, they're just nicer.
Yes.
So how are we going to recruit tournaments to come here when we have this to offer them?
Well, we got to find a way to recruit them. And,
Where does that funding come from?
Well-
In the first 3 years, they've been
Yeah.
part of this startup fee to do that? Because in order to get the tournaments coming up, we have to do something to do that.
well, I don't know the answer to how we get the money to do it. And I think the city did its own assessment on that, and that can pencil out with your investment to, I think the price tag was $25 million. So we have to find a way to improve the fields, and we have to find a way to improve and add to the fields as quickly as we can to be competitive. I still think we can start and bring in some tournaments based on the fields that we have. We can get started on that, but it won't be what is needed to fully achieve the aspirations that we have.
And we have brought in tournaments, but just like Danielle was saying, like we've experienced too, they're all local, they're all
Yeah.
within 30-mile radius. So at the end of the tournament day, they go back to their house, they're not staying in hotels.
And that's my biggest point is, do I think Mr. Watkins can fill a tournament? Absolutely. But are we gonna see what you're talking about,
Yeah.
seeing from it? I don't know that we are. That's a legitimate concern.
And that's where we see the benefit of Discover Odessa being a partner here. And, you know, that they go to trade shows, they engage with groups to come in and participate. They're putting out information on hotel, and we're negotiating hotel rates, hotel rates for these teams to come in, and they're locked in. All of those things that this is a four-prong, if you will, the leagues, the city, Discover Odessa, and UTPB. And we have a really good relationship with them. And we're going to continue to do that and grow it. And they have the access to the information to recruit those, actively recruit those. And we're going to work hand in glove with them on recruiting these outside groups to come in. I don't know if y'all
Well,
want
and
to
if I may say one thing, the numbers that we pointed out with the Odessa, Midland, and Andrews teams, you mentioned 11 teams from Lubbock. Well, 11 teams from Lubbock with, say, 10 kids, that's about 100 hotel rooms, which is significant when it comes to economic impact.
And what I'll say is,
Well, and I can tell you this, when we play in Lubbock, we drive back and forth.
When we play in Lubbock, we stay in Lubbock.
Yeah.
So
It depends on your game time.
and what I'll say is this. I'm sure what you can provide with us. So for a UTPB football game. Yeah.
So that's the song.
Well, I can speak to that. I've been committed for one football game. Now, we're not filling up Ratliff, we're not filling up Grande. But for one UTPB football game, we generate $100,000 in economic impact on a Saturday. We did that. If we have 5 home games, we do that 5 times. That's $500,000 of economic impact to the community. That's the visiting team coming in. That's parents of the visiting team coming in. That's parents of our student athletes coming in and staying. And so that's an example of, and we average maybe 2,000 to 3,000 people. Okay, that's not a lot. But that economic impact has a trickle-down effect for the other businesses, the ripple effect, and all those things. So, and I'm just using our football program as an example of what we can do, because we're talking about when we bring in this youth football tournament in June. That's for a weekend. That's $1 million of impact. And that's somebody that we're looking to grow that next year and incorporate a cheerleading competition and do different things. And that's only going to attract more people and more interest in all those things. So
And to his point, more of that stuff that comes in, more hotel, motel tax the city
You go back
receives.
into it.
And we're like anybody else. We're greedy. The more money you make us, the more I think the council will be willing to say, that's your,
Is that another
ugly
field?
field over there, or maybe we add 2 fields, or whatever, and it's gonna generate more. So one feeds on the other. So you gotta remember that.
And to your point, we're in a chicken or the egg situation right now. But we got to decide: are we going to be the egg or are we going to be the chicken? And we all need to have some skin in the game, and understand that we're going to have some angst, if you will. And we're doing something new. This is a new venture. We're all going down this path together. And we're all gonna have to discover where our choke points are, where our pinch points are, what does pinch for all of us. And again, acting in good faith, that's what we wanna do.
And I guess my biggest reservation is, I understand that this is great economically for Odessa, what you're presenting, but it in no way will affect Little League baseball.
It will, we can go build just 6 more fields out here,
Well,
or 6 more fields on that side of town, or 10 fields, or 12 fields. I mean,
And
so
better
but that comes, you gotta have the money to do that with. And the city, I think, has already demonstrated the fact that the city provides $1.7 million to maintain these fields. The city's already demonstrated they're willing to participate. Mayor, you disagree with that? I mean, we're participating in a big way.
Well, we're gonna be involved regardless, okay? So let me just put it in a nutshell. We've had a 25-year agreement. We built on property that we didn't own. And so there are requirements the university has to meet. And so now the rubber hits the road. So in the short process, university has to either agree that it's being news or it's not. And they're send a letter to the city if they're going to cancel, and we're not going to automatically renew. Then we go into a year transition or 2 where we're going to come together and discuss what the future's going to be, is how the associations are going to have agreements with the city, or they're going to have this third party and work with the university, because the university has future plans of what they need to do, and they have to get this to return an investment. And so our participation, there are some things that the university is asking from us, and we have to work out those details. And so our participation is going to be there, just like Councilman Thompson saying, is that we are going to be, our participation here, we have an investment, we'll be here, we also have, all the parts. And so, and for me, it was my concern was little, because I knew they weren't here. So what does that mean? And my question to the university was, without knowing at that time, is basically what does that mean for Little League? I had the question, didn't have the answers. And that's what we got to get to. That's what we got to work out. Okay, and that's why I kept saying, this is your time to ask. Because the thing is that we're not going to get all the answers tonight.
Right, and I don't want you to feel like I'm coming across.
No, not at all.
I don't understand, you're saying you can build us more fields, and that's great. But
And maybe for Little League, this doesn't work, and that's okay.
May not, yeah.
That's fine.
There's
And you continue to operate that way. But as far as for the city, and for one aspect, is that all the fields outside of the UT system belong to the taxpayer. And the goal 25 years ago was to be able to find a way to invest in those fields and to generate hotel tax. And I know that there are a lot of stakeholders in this community that want to see that. They're geared to want to see turn this area into some way a sports, basically attraction for the region. And the destination, yeah, thank you. And so, the thing is that there's a lot of investment in hotels, not just the one downtown, but all around the surrounding areas. And they're committed, to want to make this work. And the thing is that it will come out close. And whether it's beginning or back in. And the university has goals of what they want to accomplish in 10 years, and they want to be a bigger part of the community. In the end, what does it mean? Well, for the taxpayers, we have to find the money. And this is an avenue of being able to grow this hotel motel tax that we can turn around and reinvest. And if there is, and I basically said this, there'll be a return on investment. If we can create demand for increasing local participation in youth sports and go from 3 to back to 5 weeks or 6 weeks, then that will necessitate for us to expand the park system. We can make that investment on the budget of the city, because we know on the back end, we'll be able to get the hotel tax. Now, here's the mountain that we have to climb. Okay, it takes a lot of economic, and a lot of heads and beds to make those dollars up. It's a lot. I mean, because, and for us to be able to repay that. And so, but I'll tell you one thing is, the last 25 years, we're not doing it. And we can't continue that model. We have to change. We have to progress. We're no longer a small little sleepy town. We're a major metropolitan with a 4-year university, 2-year college. And the thing is that we have to change the way we do things. We have to start looking forward.
If you just drive around the city and look at all the new development and go look at, take the time, and you've done that, I'm sure some of you have, drive out to Parksville and see all those new young families out there and all the kids in the playground that they've invested in out there. We got other developments that are on the drawing board that you're not even aware of. That the town is not getting smaller, even though we have boom and bust. It's not getting smaller, it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger in a hurry. And so we're trying to be forward thinking and trying to stay ahead of it because we know that this is important. And this whole hotel motel tax thing is a big piece of it. And it gives us a great avenue and doesn't cost our taxpayers anything. That's the beauty of it. And it's a great partnership we have with UTPB and nobody wants to see that not I don't think.
I love seeing it.
But what overall, what we've had is in the past, we're not going to continue that. It's going to change. I think all of us as stakeholders, you guys will be driving that narrative, is that we're all going to have to work to come with an agreement on what that future is going to be. The reason is that university is not going to renew 25 years, not the old one. We can't do that. And so the thing is all since involved, and there's some parameters that the university has not been meeting in the last 25 years. And so now that's going to have to change. They're going to have to meet those requirements. And so we're going to spend this year, this association, and we as a city, and us all together, is to find, common ground, commonalities of what that's going to look like. Yes, ma'am.
One other question I just have is, is there going to be any, if this says proceed and y'all come in to our local leagues and to the, city fields, are y'all going to dictate like what brand of baseball we play or?
We don't want to do anything.
So at the very minimum, that level of involvement. If there's, but to go back to Dr. Woodley's, that's something we've got to figure out and what that looks like.
We're open to figuring out what works.
Will tournaments be allowed for both nonprofits and for-profit organizations coming in, or would it just be?
Again, I think that's open for discussion.
Gotta figure that out.
I think it should.
Yeah. Again, we as a university, I want everybody, we're trying to be inclusive and to bring as many opportunities possible to bring people to campus, whatever that looks like. We don't want to exclude anyone. And so again, bringing them to campus, getting them used to being on campus and being a good partner in the community, that's what we want to do.
In the nutshell, how it'll work is Discover Odessa is the recruiter. Recruiting, in essence, this is what the city funds, internal mechanisms in Discover Odessa. So they would recruit a myriad of tournaments. That still means how it's being done still continues. It's just a matter is have to get UTB involved because there's a schedule of the facilities that can be used. We can't conflict on of other league and other tournaments at the same time or practice time, things of that nature. They become the central schedule of all the facilities on UTB. City's role is going to be to continual maintenance of these fields. Same role that we are participating in. At one point, we will address and come to and talk about capital expansion and improvements of that nature, and how those will be paid. You know, the scenario is, would it be hot funds? And so we have to be able to get that, because there are restrictions to those. So a lot of things need to change in order to make that happen. And so, that's why we need the year, if not beyond, to be able to do this, because it's a lot of hurdles and a lot of questions, and we don't have the answers, but once we answer them and we ask a question, sometimes, we'll birth an additional 10 questions. And so it's never ending. And when we leave tonight, I guarantee you, there's gonna be a lot more questions that you're gonna have. And then you're gonna go back to your boards, to your people, and then they're gonna ask questions that we didn't think about tonight. And so this is gonna have to be an ongoing dialogue in order for us to get to a middle ground where we all can agree. We may not all get to 100%, but the thing is that one thing is for certain is that this change is gonna take place. And we are gonna have to go forward, and we are gonna have to be forced to be here on the table and come up with an agreement that we all can best live with. Because status quo from the past has changed. We have to come up with an agreement, or a lot of people will have to be forced to pull out of the line. We want to be a community partner, and we're pushing to be a community partner. It's up to us to come and find those answers and find an agreement. Yes, sir. EJ? Yes, sir. Anybody have more questions?
I kept thinking we were actually going to get to me, but that really hasn't happened too much. Could I just say a few things?
Go for it.
I'll be just as absolutely brief as I possibly can be. I applaud just wholeheartedly the vision of Odessa as some sort of sports magnet. And with UTPB at the center of it. I'm a lifelong Odessa, except for my time spent at college. And I taught at all 3 colleges in the area. I've been a student in all 3 colleges in the area. And I applaud the idea of using sports as a way of furthering education and furthering the granting degrees. All of those things are absolutely wonderful. On the other hand, I have just a question or two. I'm not absolutely clear. It sounds to me as if UTPB is going to be scheduling practices for every field around town.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The UTPB would be scheduling all the practices around town for all the teams?
We don't know.
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
That was a question I brought
Okay,
up.
that sounds like a nightmare to me. I've done enough scheduling in my life to know that, you're talking.
We need a software package for that, and we might have one, but okay.
My next question is the plan then for UTPB also to be making up our league schedule?
Again, I'm leaning on you guys to say this is what we need access-wise to the schedule, right? We're holding the schedule, we're managing the schedule as it relates to making sure opportunities exist equally for the leagues.
Access to the fields. that
And
you
the
need.
access to the fields and making sure, and then those weekends that we may carve out to bring tournaments in and notifying and saying, okay, these are included in outside tournament weekends or whatever that might be.
So the short answer.
Well, at least understand what you're saying. It sounds to me like the huge change that's necessary is lots of big tournaments. And until some of those changes get made, I'm a little skeptical. I really am.
And that's okay.
There's a tremendous amount of politics, and I take softball, since that's what I know first. I've been involved in all these different ones, other sports too, and my kids as well, and my grandkids. But if you want an ASA tournament, you might be able to do a big group with UTPB and Discover Odessa might be able to go and wield some influence and win a bid at the state convention for ASA for USSSA recruiting next to do with Tommy Hawkins, and he wants lots of tournaments that he's in charge of. Now, there are other softball groups that an organization might be able to get and promote and get a big tournament, that like TAAF and other, and a couple of other organizations. That might be possible. But ASA and USSSA, those are big battles.
Yeah.
It must be, they talk when it comes to those associations.
Those are big battles.
Well, you gotta start
Well,
somewhere.
the power brokers are in it.
Well, you know, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time, and we'll get together again. I hope that the associations will agree to meet with Todd so that we can learn more about what your needs are, what may work and what may not work in the coming months. We would appreciate the opportunity to be able to sit down with you, and of course, we'll continue to work with the city. We at least have to get the 1-year transition agreement done before May, for the reasons that I just talked about. So we want, but we don't have to get the entire thing scoped out by then, because, you know, we're not changing anything in the fall. It's December 1. That is kind of the target date for us to be able to figure out how we get started on the thing that we talked about today. So we've got some time to work through it together in good faith, and we appreciate the opportunity for all of you to be so kind as to come to the table with Todd and have those one-on-one conversations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council members,
Thank
we love having you. We want to see those orange masks everywhere, especially on Zoom calls when you're in a bunch of people. Thank you,